Let's move on to our first question today. And our first question of the day gets submitted to us by Jessika, who writes, "Hey John, Dr. Sleep opened to $14 million, which is a big plummet from its initial tracking. With the good reviews and buzz that it got, why do you think it had this outcome?" All right, thanks a lot for the question. And yeah, listen, Dr. Sleep was a movie that looked pretty good and is more than pretty good when you finally go to see it. I really enjoyed this film. I wasn't the biggest fan of the ending, but that aside, overall, I tremendously enjoyed this film. I thought it was really great. The tracking numbers had this thing somewhere in the mid to high 20s, maybe even a little more optimistically in the 30s. It came in about half of that. Here's the weekend box office. Coming in number one was Midway, which, by the way, another example of number one not being good enough because this movie cost too much to only make $17.5 million. But that's another story for another time. Dr. Sleep opens with $14.1 million. Playing with Fire, the new John Cena, the Citizen Kane of our time, came in at $12.8 million, which is, I'll be frank with you, is more than I thought it was going to make.
Me too.
Last Christmas managed to pull in 11.6, and Terminator Dark Fate took about a 70% drop, making $10.8 million on its second weekend bow. But the story here right now that we're talking about is Dr. Sleep. Rob, we have here in front of us a movie that, by most standards, when you look at it with most people, enjoyed, like the audience rating on Dr. Sleep.
I liked it.
Verified audience ratings were very strong. I liked it very much. You liked it very much. The reviews have been quite strong. The audience positive word of mouth has been quite strong. And yet it comes in under what it projected, which only makes me shudder to think what it would have made if it didn't get positive reviews and if it didn't get positive word of mouth, but ends up making $14.1 million. Is this a case of nobody remembers The Shining? Is it a case of The Shining was a little bit too much of a twisty movie that anybody could understand where a sequel would go? Do people not care about Ewan McGregor? Do people not care? I mean, we've seen horror films doing well in the last couple. I'm at a loss here, Rob. Why do you think Dr. Sleep has underperformed from its potential? How do you see it?
Well, I have a theory about this.
Ooh.
My theory is if you look at the movies that have been doing really well in the marketplace, another Stephen King movie. The first of all, everyone's seen the miniseries. People grew up with Pennywise. The first was about kids. The horror audience, the people that run out to these films, traditionally are younger people. And now horror has become something for both men and women, girls and boys. I mean, horror is a genre that appeals to everybody. I honestly think that this movie is about, and this is just a theory, an older dude. You know, I mean, this movie didn't make that much. Dr. Sleep did not make as much money. It made a little bit more money than Countdown. You know, that movie, like, You're Gonna Die in 3 days, that came out a couple weeks ago. The audience for these movies skews younger. And Ewan McGregor, as much as I love Ewan McGregor, he's Obi-Wan Kenobi. He's basically Alec Guinness now. And I think a lot of the traditional horror audience didn't turn out for this movie because it didn't necessarily appeal to them. And the older audience, holiday weekend, they had other things to do. I just think it was a function of the fact that it was about a middle-aged guy. I honestly think that.
I don't know about that because we see movies with middle-aged or older guys do well, and
this had a girl, this had a younger girl
like
in
how
it.
old's Tom Cruise?
It's yeah, I know, but you've still got an old, like, Mission Impossible's an older franchise. It's been around for 25 years.
So Shining.
But The Shining is from 1980, and while people like it, I don't think that it was the kind of movie that, I don't know, for whatever reason, I don't think it had a strong enough identity to entice the major movie-going audience. I'm perplexed by this. I really am. I thought it would do much better.
The only theory I have, and I don't even know that I buy this theory, is that, Ann and I were with a couple of friends, and we were talking about movies. The friends were asking me what movies I've seen lately. We talked about Dr. Sleep. And a couple of people said, I watched The Shining a few years ago, because it is an older film. I watched it a few years ago. I just didn't understand that movie. Like, yeah, it's a hotel that's haunted, but really, ask somebody to explain what is The Shining. And the average filmgoer, I think, what I was starting to find was having a hard time defining what The Shining is. What's it really about?
Right.
And then, Anne at the same time said, yeah, I feel the exact same way. I'm like, really? And Dr. Sleep kind of creates an interpretation of The Shining that I don't know a lot of people came away from The Shining. Like, what Dr. Sleep paints The Shining as being and meaning, I think a lot of people never thought of The Shining in those terms that Dr. Sleep paints it in, And I think that might have hurt it moving forward, that a lot of people might have just thought, hey, I saw The Shining a few years ago when I was younger, and I just didn't understand it, so I don't know if I'm going to... Again, I'm not even saying I buy this theory. I'm not even saying I buy it, but I'm just kind of at a loss. Because I think the trailers look pretty good. We got Ewan McGregor's coming out in a new comic book movie with the Harley Quinn film, where he's playing Black Mask. I mean, everybody's buzzing about Ewan McGregor right now because the Obi-Wan Kenobi series got made. It got a huge pop at D23. I got to tell you, that's my theory, but I don't even know that I buy it. I am at a loss on this.
But you brought up something just now that I didn't consider. There's a lot of people who haven't seen The Shining. Yeah,
or at all, let alone watched it, maybe were confused by it.
And what was interesting is that this movie is both a sequel to the story The Shining, because Stephen King's novel, Dr. Sleep, which I actually liked, is a sequel to his novel, The Shining. But Kubrick did his film is very different than the book. And this movie is kind of a sequel to both. It's the literary adaptation of Stephen King's sequel to his own book. But then this is also a sequel to the movie The Shining, which was totally different from Stephen King's book, that he has said, he's famously said for years, I don't like Kubrick's adaptation. So maybe a lot of people are like, I didn't go to this because I've never seen The Shining. And if you think about it, dude, 1980 was 39 years ago. And your primary movie-going audience, if you're saying between the ages of 16 and 30, there's no guarantee that you've seen The Shining. The Shining's, even the It miniseries came out in the 90s, so kids grew up with that miniseries, whereas The Shining...
And it's a killer clown, so there's a hook there. There's an instant hook, as opposed to a creepy, kind of twisted ghost story that not a lot of people understand.
And like you said, the people that do watch it, they're like, what does this mean exactly?
Yeah.
So I think that might... It kind of... You know what this might be? This might be this year's Blade Runner 2049. Everyone loves The Shining. Everyone loves Blade Runner, at least within our community. But the rest of the world, they're like, The Shining might as well be ancient history.
Well, listen, guys. First of all, go see Dr. Sleep. It's really good. It's a really good movie. Anyway, why do you guys think this movie underperformed? It got great reviews. It got solid audience responses. Got good buzz and word of mouth. Pretty decent marketing campaign, I thought. Yet it still underperformed. What are your theories about why maybe it did that? Do you think maybe it's because people were confused by The Shining? Do you think, like Rob's saying, just not enough people have actually seen The Shining, today's audience? Do you think it could be about the fact that the lead character is a middle-aged dude? What do you guys think? Jump down to the comments section below and let me know your thoughts.
The new 4K disc is great, though.
Oh, of course it does. All right.